Hello and welcome. It's Will Elwood here, welcoming you to this brand new training. I'm really excited. This is the first time I've given this particular training. There is loads of exciting and impactful new content here. So I just want to start just by thanking you for joining me, thanking you for creating and dedicating this time to this training, and I know it's going to be good. So this is how to master your mind and live a life without limits. And I'm giving this training because I really know from personal experience and from the hundreds of people that I've worked with and coached over the years that the mind can often feel like a prison. The mind can often feel like a prison, and we can feel trapped and we can feel so limited. But it doesn't have to be this way. We really can master our mind. We really can create a mind that gives us exactly what we want. And the evidence is in the fact that there's people out there who are creating their dreams, they're living their dream lives, they're getting what they want, they're feeling how they want to feel. So it just shows that it really is possible. And by the end of this training, I really want you just to see and really be excited to see just what is possible. So you're going to want to stay until the end because I've got something for you. This is something free. This is a gift from me to you, something that I really believe is going to just help you on your journey to creating a life without limits. So very quickly, if you don't know me, my name is Will Elwood. I'm a native Englishman. I'm living in Germany. I've been here for coming up 4 years. Wow. I'm a life coach. I am an RTT practitioner. RTT is rapid transformational therapy. And really what I do is I give people their freedom back, whether that is by connecting with their confidence, whether that is helping people to break limiting habits and behaviors, helping them to create more money, to grow a business. You know, freedom really looks different for different people, but at the core of what I do, it's really about giving people their freedom back. I'm also the author of a book titled Becoming Unstuck. And it's really my story and also my client stories, just giving tips, tools, strategies to help people become unstuck. I absolutely love music. I've been playing piano for coming up, nearly 20 years. I've been playing piano. I am a mild coffee addict, absolutely love coffee. I'm the happiest just sat drinking coffee, people watching, absolutely in my element. I love travel as much as I possibly can, and love nature. Very fortunate to live literally a couple of minutes walk away from an amazing forest where I spend a lot of time. When I'm not working, when I'm not helping people, you'll find me in the forest just exploring, and I'm very happy. Now, just to outline what you will learn today. The training is in 3 parts. I'm all about simplicity. So in 3 very simple parts. First of all, we'll be discussing why changing just your actions will nearly always end in failure. There's a reason why something like 98% of New Year's resolutions simply do not work. Because if only that was that simple, if it was that simple that we would just change our actions. But you will know from experience, I know this personally, that it works for a few days, we take action, we do different things, but it's almost like we've got a bungee cord attached to our backs and it pulls us back to our familiar way of being. So we're going to be talking about that, why action really isn't enough, even though so many people are talking about just take different actions, it's not enough. We're then going to be, or you're rather going to be discovering, how to get your mind to work for you instead of against you. I do not believe there's anything like self-sabotage. I don't believe self-sabotage is a thing, and you're going to realize and understand why that is my belief. And I say this to my clients, I say this to friends and family. There's no such thing as self-sabotage, and you'll understand this more about why I think this, and also learn how to get your mind to work for you instead of against you. And also 5 winning strategies for mind mastery. These strategies are not just made up. These are strategies that I've learned over the last 8 or so years as my personal development journey has begun. These are tried and tested. These are backed up by people who really, really know what they're talking about. I know what I'm talking about, and I learn from the best. I learn from brilliant mentors, and yeah, these are 5 of the best winning strategies for mind mastery. So let's start. Why changing just your actions will nearly always end in failure. So I want you to meet somebody. I want you to meet what I love to call stuck Will. So this picture was taken when I was about 18 or 19. And I call him Stuck Will because he was stuck in debt. He was stuck in a very unfulfilling job, stuck with anxiety. Panic attacks were a daily occurrence. I was stuck in some bad habits. As you can see, I've got a pint of beer in that right hand. I used to knock the beer back like there was no tomorrow. In that left hand, I've probably got a cigarette, which you can't see. I'm probably hiding that. So my family didn't see on Facebook that I was smoking, but I was. And stuck in really low confidence. I know that that's a fake smile. I know that's a fake smile. I really wasn't happy in this photo. I really wasn't happy at all at this part of my life. You know, the part of my life in my 18, 19 and early teens where I should have been really happy and confident and just loving life. But I really wasn't. I was really quite stuck. And I was stuck for quite a long time. And like a lot of people, I tried taking new actions, and like a lot of people, I almost set myself up for fail. And the way that I would do this is I would, on a Sunday night, I'd get all inspired and I'd say, right, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I can't live like this any longer. I'm going to have to do something differently. And I'd write out this action plan, this long, elaborate action plan of going to the gym and eating right and stopping smoking and saving money and getting out of debt. This big, long list of actions. And it worked perfectly for about 2 or 3 days, sometimes a week. And then it would just get far too much for my mind. It was just overwhelming. And I lost all faith and I would go back to old familiar ways. And maybe you're watching this and you can relate. Maybe this is your thinking as well. You've just said to yourself, enough is enough. And you've tried to take action. You've taken actions which you really think will help, but you just can't make it consistent. So we're going to show, or now I'm going to show you why that is the case, because we've believed a myth. There's a real myth that if we change our actions, we're going to get different results. And this is what we tend to do, isn't it? We create an action plan. We start to think about what we can do differently. But I want to show you something really, really powerful. If you only take away just one thing from this training, let it be this: that we need to take a few steps backwards. Before we consider actions, we need to take a few steps backwards, because our actions are determined by our feelings. And I saw this when I was all pumped, when I was all motivated. It spurred on actions, and I was able to create an action plan, and I was able to get a little bit of a result for a very, very short time. So it's clear that our actions are determined by our feelings, but where do our feelings come from? If we were to take another step back, where do our feelings come from? And it's our feelings that come from our thoughts. It all starts with our thoughts. Because sooner or later, whether it was 3 or 4 days, whether it was a week, I would go back to the old familiar ways of thinking. And because I would go back to those old familiar ways of thinking, I would tell myself how stuck I was. I would tell myself how just overwhelmed I was. That thought created feelings of being stuck, which led to inaction, which got me the same results time and time again. And then something changed. Something changed. I realized that I was stuck in this pattern. I realized that I was setting myself up for failure by trying to solve everything overnight. So I had a new thought. One day I literally woke up and I said, right, what if it was about progress over perfection? What if that was my focus from now on was just taking one part of my life and just focusing on that and focusing on progress over perfection. And something really cool happened. When I thought this way, I felt capable because I had enough confidence at that point to say, well, I can do that. I'm not really sure that I can change everything, but I'm pretty sure I can get some progress in some area of my life. And it was this feeling of being capable that enabled me to take some new small steps forward. And it was those new small steps forward that enabled me to get some new results. And over time, I was able to create new empowering thoughts. I was able to create new feelings of being capable and confident and inspired, which only created new actions, which got me new, better results. And in a couple of years, I really wasn't feeling stuck at all. So we have to focus on thought. This is why just action alone is not enough, because if we just focus on changing our actions, sooner or later, we're going to go back to our old familiar ways of thinking, because every habit of action is run by a habit of thought. And unless we change those thoughts, unless we upgrade those ways of thinking, those ways of seeing the world, change is very, very difficult. And you'll know people who've transformed, you'll know people who've lost, half their body weight or have completely transformed their personalities. They think differently. They see themselves differently. They see the world differently. And I love this quote from Albert Einstein, who said, "The world as we have created it is a process of our thinking, and it cannot be changed without changing our thinking." All right, so now part 2, where I'm going to be showing you how to get your mind to work for you instead of against you. Have you ever wished for a simple to use instruction manual for your mind? When you buy a new car or you buy a new laptop, it comes with an instruction manual, and this is pretty handy. I would absolutely have loved to have had an instruction manual for my mind, especially when I was stuck, because it was so frustrating to feel that my mind was working against me. It made me feel so helpless and so powerless. And I just dreamed of having some form of instruction manual, or just some steps that I could understand to making my mind work for me. Now, I'm very, very fortunate in that I have discovered what I feel is close to that instruction manual. The wonderful lady pictured here is Marissa Peer. Marissa Peer is the founder of Rapid Transformational Therapy, which I trained in. And she has been a hypnotherapist for over 30 years, I think 34 years. She was voted the UK's top hypnotherapist. She's worked with celebrity clients. She is really at the top of her game. And she has, through her experience, created something which she calls the 3 rules of the mind. So these belong to Marissa Peer. These do not belong to me in any shape or form. These are her rules based on her very extensive experience of working with people. And these rules apply for absolutely everybody. And I cannot tell you just how refreshing it was to discover these rules, and how exciting it is now for me to teach these rules to you, because they are liberating just to understand, and it will just make so much sense about why we do what we do and how we do it. So this for me was the best way to explain how to get our mind to work for us instead of against us. It makes sense that we understand these rules first of all. So rule number 1. Your mind does what it thinks is in your best interest. Your mind does what it thinks is in your best interest. Your mind, my mind, our minds are always curious. They're always looking for the sources of pain and pleasure. If you have a highly pleasurable experience, your mind is searching, your mind is wanting to know and wanting to understand what the source of that pleasure is. And the opposite is true. Anytime you experience great pain, your mind is also doing its job and it's looking for the root or the cause of that pain. And the subconscious mind is absolutely brilliant. It is always listening. It's listening to our words. It's got no sense of humor. It doesn't understand sarcasm. It doesn't understand jokes. It just absorbs, it just accepts the words that we say. So I want to tell you a story. I worked with a client a couple of years ago. We'll call him Sam. And Sam was a business owner and he wasn't doing very well. He was feeling pretty stuck and he felt very, very stuck when it came to making calls. His job meant that he had to put himself out there into the world. He had to talk about his service. He had to talk about himself. And on our first call, he told me, I absolutely hate making sales calls. It kills me to get rejected. And I don't want to be seen as pushy, and I feel pushy when I'm selling. Now, can you imagine for a moment that you are Sam's mind? So you are Sam's mind, and your job is to listen, and your job is to understand what Sam wants based on his words, based on what he is telling his mind is going to bring him pleasure or give him pain. Do you think, if you were Sam's mind, that you would want him to make sales calls? No. Just listen to the language. It kills me to get rejected. The subconscious mind, like I said a moment ago, has no sense of humor. It takes that so literally. So is it any wonder? Is it any wonder that Sam was experiencing a lot of resistance, almost to the point of anxiety at the thought of thinking of picking up the phone? It's no wonder. So how I was able to help Sam was to teach him this. I was able to show him that his language was creating his world. Rich Litvin, a brilliant coach, says, our words create our world. Our words create our world. And it's so true. So I was able to help Sam. And I was able to make him dialogue differently with himself about what he wanted. We had to get his mind on board because he'd been communicating for such a long time in a negative way that was creating this resistance for him to make sales calls. So I encouraged him to dialogue differently. So he would say to himself, it excites me to make sales calls. This is a really great tip. Anytime you're feeling nervous or anxious about something, dialogue with yourself and tell yourself that it's excitement. Because the symptoms of nervousness and excitement are almost identical. The only difference is the way that we label that. Because if you think about it, to be nervous or excitement, it's exactly the same symptoms. There's racing thoughts, there's nervous or lots of energy, there's a beating heart, there's sweaty palms. It's the same, but if we tell ourselves, this excites me, I'm just going to use this excited energy to work for me, it's just sending a very, very different message to our minds. And I taught him this. I taught Sam that, rejection is not going to kill you. It can't kill you. Rejection is a part of a job, and yes lives in the land of no. So if you hear a no, if you get rejected, it just means that you're getting closer to that yes. And this completely changed the way that he saw his work. As did the final third way of making him see his work. He hated selling, but I got him to see that, selling is really an honor, and he gets to impact people's lives positively by selling to them. And it's true. He had a really good service. It was based in, I believe, IT recruitment. And he was really helping people in a positive way. He wasn't sleazy. He wasn't a bad person. He wasn't one of these cringy salespeople. He was just doing a service, and just seeing it this way, changing the way that he thought about what he was doing, was able to get him a different result. So dialogue is so important. Here are some tips to dialogue with yourself in a powerful way. I insist. Next time you notice any resistance towards doing something, tell yourself, I insist on making this sales call. I insist on completing this gym workout. I insist on asking that person out. It thrills me to. This is a great one to use when there's any resistance and you're doing that thing. It thrills me to be working out. It thrills me to be making sales calls. It thrills me to do live training. You know, I had a live training a couple of weeks ago, and I'll be honest, I had some nervousness pop up. And I told myself, it thrills me. I love to do live training. At the time, I was nervous, but it quickly became excitement just because how I was dialoguing with myself. You can also say, I want to. You know, torture yourself in this way. The mind has to accept it. The mind responds to your words. The mind responds to what you say. Doesn't care whether what you tell it is true or false, good or bad, whether it serves you or cripples you. It just accepts it and it just lets it in. So that's rule number 1. Rule number 2 of your mind. The mind responds to 2 things and 2 things only: the words we say and the pictures in our heads. I want to demonstrate this. So you see here this picture of a lemon. I want you to look at this picture very, very quickly and then just close your eyes. And I want you to take a nice deep breath in and breathe out. And I want you to imagine that in your right hand, you're holding a lemon. And this lemon is big and fat and ripe. And just imagine the weight of this big, fat, ripe lemon. Imagine the feeling of that leathery skin, that texture of the lemon in your hand, how it feels against your fingertips, how it feels against your palm. And I want you now just to imagine bringing that lemon up to your nose and sniffing and smelling that citrus, familiar smell of that lemon. And once you've done that, I want you to bring it close to your mouth and imagine taking the biggest bite possible. And you've bitten into this lemon and your teeth have sunk in to the skin, right into the juicy flesh of this lemon. And you're now chewing. And as you're chewing, the pulp, the pips, the juice are swirling round and round as you chew and chew and chew. Okay, you can open your eyes. If you notice any saliva in your mouth, if you notice that you cringed or your eyes reacted negatively, you know, like when something's really, really sour, we sort of flinch almost our eyes. If you notice any reaction, that is because your mind is responding to those words and your mind is responding to those pictures. And there was no lemon. There was no lemon, but your mind responded as if, because your mind does not know the difference between real or imaginary. This is why when people get nervous, when they're focusing on something which is giving them fear, they actually start to respond as if that fear is right there. Here's a thought. If your mind can respond to fun, meaningless words and pictures just like that lemon, imagine how it can respond to empowering words and pictures. Just imagine. If your mind can respond to meaningless words and pictures, just imagine how it can respond to empowering words and pictures that you tell yourself and that you choose to see in your mind. I want to tell you a story. A client of mine a couple of years ago, she bought a confidence hypnosis audio. So I recorded this confidence hypnosis audio and I sent it to her as a gift. Anyway, she listened to this and the next day she was walking her dog in the forest here in Germany and she got lost. She was feeling pretty adventurous that day, so she took a different path and she realized sort of half an hour later that, hey, I don't know where I am. And something really interesting happened. Normally, she would have got quite freaked out. And she told me that she would have, perhaps panicked, called for somebody, called for help, but something different happened. She heard a voice in her mind saying, I can do this. I can do this. And she began in her mind to picture herself just handling the situation, just very calmly, very confidently finding a solution to this problem. And what is interesting is that's exactly the suggestions that I had given her only the day before in this confidence hypnosis audio. She'd listened to this, and I literally say in this audio, anytime you feel stuck or unsafe, you tell yourself, I can do this. And she heard those words in this situation. So this story just shows that our mind listens, our mind responds to the words that we say, especially in hypnosis, especially when hypnosis. So I love this story, and it brought a huge smile to my face that, in less than 24 hours, she was thinking differently because she had changed the pictures in her head. She saw herself as somebody who was courageous and can handle things. And she spoke to herself differently. She heard a voice that says, I can do this. So rule number 3, rule number 2, just to recap, is the mind only responds to 2 things: the pictures in our heads and the words that we say. And of course, we can control both of those things. We can choose what to picture, and we can choose what words we say to ourselves. So rule number 3, the mind loves what is familiar and rejects what is unfamiliar. I've got an older sister and I've got a younger brother, and my younger brother is called Josh. He is 3.5 years younger than me. And growing up, I was a huge foodie. I still am. I still absolutely love food. I had a huge appetite, and there was almost nothing that I didn't eat. Now, my brother, on the other hand, when he was a bit younger, he was very, very fussy. And actually, he still is very, very fussy. And my mum had a really hard time for a very, very long time getting him to eat different foods. For a long time, all he would eat was broccoli and mashed potato. I mean, like literally every dinner time for a very, very long time, this is all he would eat, would be broccoli and mashed potato. And this is because we are wired to love what is familiar and to reject what is unfamiliar. And you especially see this in children. Children want to eat exactly the same foods as they've always eaten. They want to go to the same park. They want to watch the same movie. They want to read the same book every single day. Now, of course, as we grow older, we become more open-minded and just more open to unfamiliar, but we still have this preference ingrained. We love what is familiar, and we reject, or actually afraid of, what is unfamiliar. So the mind processes it like this: if something is familiar, then it's safe. If I drink in the same pub and see the same old people drink the same old beer, then it's going to be pretty familiar. If I go to an unfamiliar pub on the other side of town with different people, potential threat. It could be a really bad pub with a really bad atmosphere. There could be some dangerous people there. You see this. If you stick somebody in an unfamiliar environment, they feel uneasy. They feel uncomfortable because to the mind, unfamiliar equals a potential threat. And this is why change can seem so difficult. This is why coaches and therapists and people who help can get so frustrated that they can't help their clients because they're up against this. They're up against this preference for what is familiar. So how can we move past this? What can we do, or how can we think so that we can move past this preference for wanting to stick with what is familiar? Well, first of all, we have to remember that you can make the unfamiliar become familiar. Think of your first day of school. You look around the room, you've got all these faces of all these new fellow school kids. You've got the teacher's name. You're thinking, how can I pronounce her name? It's new. The school looked absolutely huge, and it's a pretty exciting but scary experience for kids. But you made that familiar. Within a couple of weeks or months, you knew the school like the back of your hand. You knew everybody's names. The teacher was familiar. You began to trust her. Think of, as an adult, the new jobs that you've had. Think of driving. If you can drive a car, you know, when you first stepped into that car, it may as well have been a spaceship. It was all these different parts of the car which you maybe didn't know, but you made that familiar through repetition. So a really important point is just to know that you can make anything familiar. When I first moved to Germany, I had very, very limited vocabulary. I could say, you know, how are you? I could order a beer. And I remember this sat in a cafe in my first week, and it was just like being in a bubble. I just couldn't understand anything. It was just... And now, you know, I'm not fluent, but I understand more. It's familiar. I can make out sounds. I can make out words. I can eavesdrop in a cafe and understand what people are saying because I've made the German language become familiar. And we really can make anything familiar. And a second really important point is that things often seem scary, not because they are scary, but because they're simply unfamiliar. If you can think of an area of your life where there's some fear, what if it was just the fact that it's unfamiliar? Let's look at the biggest fear in the world, public speaking. It's really not that scary. It's really not that scary. You're standing up, you're talking, you have control of the room. People are usually listening politely and attentively. It's just new. If you speak to public speakers, they will tell you that they just repeat it, they just practice. And there comes a day where they're standing up in front of people and it just doesn't bother them because they've made that familiar. They're just so used, they're so accustomed to public speaking. So just remember this. Anytime you notice any resistance or any fear to a change or a certain situation, just ask yourself, is this familiar? And if it's not, just remind yourself, one, I can make this familiar. And secondly, maybe it's only scary because it is unfamiliar. So they are the 3 rules of the mind. They are incredibly simple, but incredibly powerful just to be aware of, just to remember these. So rule number 1, the mind always does what it thinks you want. I mentioned earlier about self-sabotage. You know, there's no such thing as self-sabotage. Even the most self-sabotaging behaviors are serving a purpose. People who stick needles in their arms, that is a horrific thought for most of us. But to that person's brain, that is a source of pleasure. That's a source of pleasure. The mind wants it. If you look at any other, sort of self-destructive behaviors, procrastination, procrastination is very, very simple. There's something we don't want to do, i.e. pain, and we get rewarded the longer we put that off. This actually happens in your brain. If you are procrastinating, you are getting rewarded chemically with chemicals that make you feel good. So the longer you procrastinate, the better you feel because you're putting off that pain. So procrastination is not self-sabotage. It's your mind doing its job. And your mind's number 1 job is to protect you, is to keep you alive. So rule number 1 is always doing what it thinks you want. So it's your responsibility to be so clear and tell it exactly what you want, what you insist upon, what you love to do. Even if it's not true, even if you feel absolutely terrified, communicate, persist. Tell yourself, I'm making this familiar. Tell yourself, I want this. Rule number 2, just to recap, is your mind only responds to 2 things. 1, the words you say. 2, the pictures in your head. And you can control both of those things. And the third rule of the mind is the mind loves what is familiar and rejects what is unfamiliar. But you can always make the unfamiliar become familiar. All right, we're moving on to the final part of the training for today. And this is 5 winning strategies for mind mastery that start with thought. You know, I could give you lots of strategies that are purely action-based, but all of these 5 strategies are tailored to make you change your thoughts, just to think differently, even if it's in a very, very small way. But you'll find that gathers momentum. every journey, every new way of thinking, new way of being starts with a little step. And these new ways of thinking, these strategies are going to be those little steps. So first of all, strategy number one is questions. Questions are incredibly powerful. If you were to invent a way to create new thoughts on demand or to conjure up thoughts on demand, it would be questions, because questions literally lead us to certain ways of thinking. Now, one way that you may like to ask yourself some questions and in turn create new thoughts is to journal. Lots of people love to do this. They'll buy a journal or they'll write down on their computers or phone answers to certain questions. So journaling is one way to do it. And if you're wondering whether I will be sharing some questions, I will do in just a moment, but this is just your options for asking yourself these questions. So first of all is just to journal, to write it down in some form. Another thing that you could do is to coach yourself. So this is something that I do when I sit down at my desk. I've got some key questions that I'll ask myself, and I'll read these out loud. I'll say, what am I grateful for today? And just imagine having a conversation with myself. You can do this in the shower. You can do this on the way to work when you're in the car, but just talk to yourself. Lots of studies show that, very successful people talk to themselves. They get ideas generated. They create new ways of thinking. Don't be afraid of, appearing crazy. Like, who cares if somebody overhears you? Doesn't matter. But you could coach yourself. You could speak out loud, or even just think inside your head. Give yourself some questions and ask those inside your head as well. But coach yourself. You can do this. Don't always have to invest in a coach. The best coach, I believe, will be yourself. And we've got here a quote from Tony Robbins. Successful people ask better questions, and as a result, they get better answers. And it's so true. When I was stuck, I would just ask myself, why am I so stuck? Why am I so stuck? This isn't fair. Why me? I was asking myself really weak, unempowering questions, and I got really weak, unempowering answers. It wasn't until I started just to think a little bit differently and ask myself some key questions that were able to inspire me to take different actions. So here are some questions for you. First of all, what am I grateful for today? Gratitude, everyone's talking about it these days, but it's because it works. It's because when we are in a state of gratitude, it's been proven that it kills stress. When we are in big states of gratitude, we experience something called DHEA, which is as close enough as you can imagine to a natural antidote to stress. So when we're stressed, of course, it is cortisol. It's cortisol. It's going around our system. DHEA is something that stops that stress. It kills those stress hormones. So what am I grateful for today? What an amazing start. Well, what an amazing way to start the day, just asking that question. What am I grateful for today? And I'll do this anytime I feel, down or stressed or stuck. I'll just put my hand over my heart and say, what am I grateful for today? It just grounds you. Do you know what I mean? It just grounds you. When the mind is racing or we're experiencing, great highs or great lows, it just grounds us and brings us back to the here and now. So what are you grateful for today? Really powerful question to ask. It kills stress and just grounds us. Secondly, what does success look like today? So before you just go about taking actions based on what you've always done, stop and ask yourself this question. What does success look like today? My definition of success is just doing our best. And of course, our best looks differently. If I'm tired, if I'm ill, if I'm grieving, for example, my definition of success for that day looks very, very different compared to when I'm healthy, happy, and full of energy. So define what success looks like. It may be that taking it easy for a day is success. It's not always about moving forward at 100 miles per hour. So what does success look like today? Great question, just to create some clarity and create some streams of thought that are really going to serve you for that day. The third question, again, I have to credit Marissa Peer for this. What do I not want to do today? She discovered that, very successful people, they do the things that they don't want to do first thing in the morning. So let's say they've got 10 jobs and 9 of them are easy or they're enjoyable to do. And there's that one job, maybe a tax return, something which is not enjoyable, which takes a lot of time or energy. Successful people will train themselves. Successful people will condition themselves to do that thing first of all. And it's a really powerful question to ask. What do I not want to do today? And doing it, just creating a level of discipline to simply do that thing. Fourth question, who can help me? Who can help me? We do not have to take this journey alone. I don't believe there's anything such as self-made. So there's a lot of people who say, I'm a self-made millionaire, I'm a self-made success. They're not. Nobody in the world has got by and created success without the help of other people. Every person, depending on what your level of your definition of success is, any successful person or unsuccessful person has people available. And I think truly successful people will use and they'll support their network. So there's people out there right now, whether they're friends, family, or professionals, coaches, therapists, counselors, mentors, there are people out there who can help you. You do not have to take this journey alone or figure out all the answers alone. There are people who can help you. And here are some coaching questions. What is a scary step forward? What is an exciting step forward? What's a crazy step forward? Can't tell you the amount of times that clients have had some really amazing breakthroughs in their life and business just by me asking, what's a crazy step forward? If you couldn't lose, what would you do? But it was those questions that inspired those thoughts. Questions are so powerful. Don't overlook their simplicity. There's a big myth that, crazy ideas or great ideas have to be complicated. It's not true. The simplest questions, the simplest strategies, the ones that work are the simplest ones. So questions, begin to use questions. Best thing to do is first thing in the morning when you wake up, just to ask yourself some key questions, whether that's journaling or coaching yourself, but you're just going to create new and different streams of thoughts, which is exactly what you want. So strategy number 2 is visualization. There was a study, don't know when it was, but there was a study, and they split a basketball team into 3 groups. So group 1 were told to not practice. They were told to take it easy, put their feet up, to not practice for a week. The second group were told to practice. So they were told to go out to the basketball court, and the second group were to practice taking 3-point shots. The third and final group, this group were told to practice, but only in their head. So they were told you are not allowed to pick up a basketball. You just have to practice in your mind. So this third and final group would just practice in their mind taking these 3-pointer shots. And then they brought all the team back and they compared the progress. So here were the results. The first group, who hadn't practiced, as you would have expected, didn't really make any improvements, which makes sense because they hadn't practiced. The second group, who dedicated this week to take in real life these 3-point shots, they did make some improvements. As you would expect, they'd been practicing, and we know that practice makes perfect, or repetition creates better results. But what shocked everybody was the final group, the third group, who practiced but only in their minds. In other words, they visualized taking those shots. They were the group that made the most progress. So even though in real life they did not pick up a ball, in their minds they practiced, and they had improved in real life as a result of visualization. So visualization is a wonderful strategy to use. Now, the key is emotion. A lot of people I work with say, I really can't, or I struggle to visualize, or I can visualize, but I don't sort of get any results or feel any different. The key is emotion. When you sit down to visualize. You want to open your eyes and be in a different state. If you think back to the start of this training where it was thoughts, feelings, actions, results, you want to go from thinking into feeling. The key with visualization is to change your state, is to think so clearly, is to imagine so vividly that you feel different, so that you feel you've already got that result, or you're standing in the shoes of that future self. That is the key result when it comes to visualization, because otherwise there's no point. You want to really be using emotion, because it's that emotion, it's that state which is going to inspire those new actions. And of course, being in that state is just going to inspire new thoughts. There's something called the cybernetic loop, which shows that our thoughts affect our feelings and our feelings affect our thoughts. So don't view that as a strictly, downward spiral: thoughts, feelings, actions, results. They are all intertwined as well, but it has to go from thinking into feeling when it comes to emotion. So the way to do that, studies have shown that when you visualize, you want to make the images as big as possible. As well as being as big as possible in your mind, you want them to be big and bright. So imagine seeing those pictures, or maybe that movie. When you visualize, see them in high definition. Imagine the sounds. Sound is a really important element. So imagine the sounds that you would have. If it's a successful public speaking gig, you would perhaps imagine the round of applause or the sound of praise from people saying, "Oh my God, you're amazing. That was so good." So think about sounds. Again, make that high definition. And really, it's just to trick your mind into thinking that it's already happened. So again, use gratitude. Use gratitude. If you can feel grateful for an experience before it happens, just imagine the thoughts that you're going to have and the actions you're going to take, because you're already there. You're already there emotionally. So the key to visualization really is emotion. Walk and talk. Here's a picture of me in France. And this is a strategy that I use for visualization. So of course you can sit and visualize. You can close your eyes. You can picture your vision. You can picture the goals that you have for yourself. You can also go on YouTube and you can get guided visualizations. There's tons of guided visualizations out there. There's an app called Insight Timer. Really recommend that. Really good for that. Something that I do, which I got from Kyle Cease, is a walk and talk. So I'll literally go for a walk on my own in the forest, and I will imagine that I'm talking on the phone to a friend. I'll imagine being on this phone to a friend, and I go along and pretend that I haven't spoken to this person for a year, and I'm basically just filling them in on all the amazing things that have happened. So to do this, I imagine that I'm on the phone with a friend, and it's a year in the future, and we're catching up. So I would say something like this: "Oh my God, hey Alex, the most amazing things have happened. So I've written a second book, and it's really taken off. And I'm working with amazing people from around the world. I'm traveling, I'm writing. I'm just feeling like super, super grateful and excited each day to wake up. Moving towards that goal of financial freedom." And I would go on and on and on. This is just a really powerful way to visualize for two reasons. First of all, you become more and more clear. As I talk about what I want, I have ideas, I have goals and dreams come to me that I didn't even know I had. So as you ramble, there's absolute method in the madness in that some really deep-seated goals come up. As I talk about what I want, I get more and more clear, and I realize, wow, I've got a goal to write a second book, or I've got a goal to travel. So that's the first thing. Secondly is the emotion. Because the mind does not know the difference between real or imaginary, as I talk as if it's happened, my energy changes. I begin to feel as if I'm actually there on the phone, talking to my friend, saying, "This has happened, and this has happened, and this is how I feel." Of course, it doesn't. I'm just walking on my own in the forest, but my mind doesn't know the difference, and I'm just connecting emotionally. So walk and talk. Give this one a go. I sometimes do this with clients during a session. I'll say, right, imagine it's 12 months from now. Tell me what your future looks like. And it's amazing just to see the ideas, but more importantly, the energy that comes out of giving ourselves permission just to walk and talk as if. All right. Number three, third strategy is self-dialogue. And of course, we've really spoken about self-dialogue. This is so important. This should really be one of the biggest takeaways. The mind responds to the words that we say. So we have to be really mindful and considerate about the words that we do say to ourselves. So I want to ask you a question. Do you remember in school there would be something called a three-legged race? So you would tie a bit of rope or something, a ribbon around your right leg, and there'd be someone next to you, and this would tie around their left leg. And you would have to be stuck with this person for a minute or so in order to win this race. So imagine you had to spend a whole day with your leg tied to someone else. What type of person would you choose to be tied to? Just think about this. If you had to spend a whole day tied to a person, what type of person would you choose to be tied to? And I ask this question because you are always with yourself. I am always with myself. Whether I am awake, whether I am asleep, I am always with myself. We, in this sense, are inescapable from ourselves. So who would you want to be with, given the fact, given this truth that you are going to spend the rest of your life with yourself? What type of person would you choose to be tied to? And I ask this because so often we are tyrants to ourselves. We are bullies to ourselves. We are our own worst enemies. I hear people say time and time again, if only I could get out of my own way, if only I could be kind to myself. We tell ourselves horrible things. We tell ourselves we're not enough. We say we're losers. We say we're fat. We say we're ugly. Really? Are we going to be talking to ourselves like this? Are we really going to choose to talk to ourselves in such a way? Because if we had somebody tied to our leg for a day and they spoke to us like this, we wouldn't settle. We wouldn't put up with it. We'd stand up for ourselves, I like to think, and we'd say, hey, no, that's not true. I'm better than that. I am enough. So it's so important how we dialogue with ourselves. We've explored that it's important because our mind is always listening to what we want. But more importantly, it's about our self-esteem as well. The mind is always listening. When we crack jokes at our own expense, I used to be really bad or good at this, depending on how you think about it. But I was always, cracking jokes about myself, about my hair, about my weight, about how hopeless I was with women. And it got a laugh, but it really robbed me of my self-esteem, my sense of self-worth. So how we dialogue with ourselves is so important for our mindset, because how we see ourselves is everything. We have to have healthy levels of confidence. We have to have healthy levels of self-esteem. And we have to like ourselves. That's the real goal of life, I think. It's not about material possessions. It's, can I spend an hour in a room with myself? Can I go on holiday with myself? Most people can't. Most people can't. And I think that's so sad. So how can we dialogue with ourselves? Well, yeah, we have to dialogue clearly about what we want. We know that's important. The mind is always listening. We have to dialogue clearly about what we want. We also have to be kind. We have to be encouraging to ourselves. We're inescapable from ourselves. You're always going to have yourself. Always. So who are you going to choose to spend time with? A dictator, a tyrant, a bully? Or is it going to be someone who's compassionate, somebody who says, I believe in you, someone who says, yeah, we've got this. We can do this. I deserve this. We have a choice. We have a choice. One of my favorite exercises, so in RTT, it uses hypnosis, but there's lots of additional exercises that you can use. And one of them is called Install the Cheerleader. So somebody's in hypnosis and I'm basically telling them that their mind is their best friend. Their mind wants them to win. The mind is like a loving parent. The mind is like a best friend. The mind is like a cheerleader cheering them on, saying, I believe in you. You can do this. And it is so touching. People cry when I do this, when we install the cheerleader, because it's so different from how we normally talk to ourselves. And it's so liberating just to install this new way of talking to ourselves, which we can do with practice, or you can do very quickly in hypnosis. People instantly will start talking to themselves in that way, as if there's a mini cheerleader on our shoulder saying, you can do this, I believe in you. So we have to be kind. We have to be encouraging. We have to be very, very careful about how we talk to ourselves, because our mind is always listening. It's always forming this picture of who we think we are. And if you look at one of the greatest people I think who ever lived, Muhammad Ali, he told himself he was the greatest long before he was. When he was an amateur, when he was a nobody by most people's standards, he was telling himself, I'm the world's greatest. That's a bad impression. But he was telling himself that. And it was that constant, repetitive self-dialogue that got him to be the world's greatest. If he had told himself, oh, you're useless, you're nothing, you're a terrible boxer, you're an awful person, no way on earth would he have become world heavyweight champion of the world. No way. So be kind, be encouraging. And tell yourself what you most wanted to hear as a child. This is a really powerful exercise. To take a piece of paper and to write what you most wanted to hear as a child. And it's largely the same thing. We wanted to hear that we were enough. We wanted to hear we were good. We wanted to hear we were loved. We wanted to hear we were safe. It's not too late. It's not too late to say these things to ourselves. We can be that person. If there was a parent or a guardian or a teacher who didn't tell you those things, tell yourself those things. Reassure yourself. Reassure that hurt child who lives inside all of us. Incredible healing will take place when you do this. Okay, strategy number 4 for winning strategies for mind mastery is new experiences. Taking you back to this: thoughts, feelings, actions, and results. Pardon me. When I was stuck, I was having the same familiar thoughts. I was having the same familiar feelings of unworthiness, of being tired, not feeling good enough. I took the same old actions, albeit a couple of attempts that didn't last very long, and I got the same old results. So really, if we want to master our minds, if we want to get a different result, we need to enter the realm of the new. We need to have new thoughts. We need to have new feelings. We need to take new actions, and then we'll get the new results. So new experiences are just a wonderful way of creating new thoughts. If we are in the same environments day after day, those environments are going to be triggers for the old familiar thoughts. So old familiar environments will just equal old familiar thoughts. Old familiar faces. If you are surrounding yourself by the same people who make you feel crap, people who make you doubt yourself, they are going to be triggers for you to feel the same, to have the same thoughts and to do the same things. So you need to really enter the realm of the new. To get new results, you need to give yourself just new experiences. And here are some ideas. So I've got here new places. There's a reason why when I wrote my book, I traveled to Croatia. I rented a tiny little apartment by the sea, and I knew that would be inspiring for me, and it was, because I tried to write my book for months and months and months, sat here in Germany at my desk, and I'm very fortunate. I've got a nice workspace, but there was just reminders. There was just too many reminders. There's too many familiar thoughts. I looked at the washing that was, hanging up, or the washing up that had to be done, and it was just too familiar. I had to think bigger. I had to be in an environment that was inspiring and would give me those inspiring thoughts. So have a think, what new places, what new environments, what new countries maybe will inspire you and give you those new thoughts. I put here as well, new faces. Are you surrounding yourself by people who are encouraging you? Are you surrounding yourself by people who are on the same mission as you in life? They've got the same goals. If not, where are they? Who are the people who light you up? Who are the people who encourage you? And if you don't know anyone, where can you find them? Go on meetup.com. Meetup, you can meet up about anything, any passions, any goals that you've got, I guarantee near you, there's going to be a meetup where you can connect with like-minded people, new faces who are just going to create new thoughts. They're going to tell you, yeah, you can do that. They're going to give some advice, but it's going to be the new music, new media. You know, we listen to the same songs, we listen to the same radio station. It's all a reminder. It's all a trigger of who we used to be. So if you want change, you're going to have to change things like this: new music, new media. So maybe new books, for example. New books are a great way of creating new thoughts, because you're instantly becoming inspired. On nearly every page, there's going to be a golden nugget or something. And of course, new habits as well. New habits. If you look at people who really master weight loss, for example, they're entering the realm of the new. There's new places, in other words, the gym, new faces, personal trainer, new friends at the gym, new music, new media. They're listening to, sporty dancing music, and new habits of working out. If you look at anyone who's transformed, they've created this new experience or loads of new experiences. And finally here, create your vision for the future today. Take a piece of paper and write out a vision for your life, a vision for who you want to be. Describe how this person thinks. Describe how this person acts. Describe how this person looks, what sort of clothes they wear, the types of things that they spend their money on, and create this vision for today. It may not be possible completely, but even if it just means dressing up slightly more smarter than usual, the fact that you do that is going to create new thoughts. If you view yourself, cool, I've had to shave, stuck on a shirt, I feel different. It's going to create new thoughts, new feelings, new actions, and new results. Never underestimate the power of small, seemingly insignificant changes. The smallest things can really, really add up. So create your vision for the future you today. And I think we're coming to number 5. Yeah, this is the 5th strategy for turning your limitations. The 5th strategy for mind mastery, and it is turning your limitations into a game. So this idea comes from one of my favorite books of all time. I've read hundreds of self-help style, personal development style books over the years. This is up there in my top 3. Crazy Good by Steve Chandler. It's called The Book of Choices, and one of the choices that he presents is the choice of shame versus game. So he says that, when we're stuck, when we are feeling limited, when there's a change that we want to make, the way that we normally go about it is to shame ourselves. So thinking about self-dialogue, we tell ourselves we're rubbish, we tell ourselves we're fat, we tell ourselves we're poor, and we shame ourselves in a misdirected attempt to try and motivate ourselves. If we're honest, it doesn't really work. Maybe very temporarily, But really the key, rather than shaming ourselves, is to turn our limitations, to turn our problems into a game. And I did this. Here's a quote quickly. This is the real secret of life: to be completely engaged with what you're doing in the here and now. And instead of calling it work, realize it's play. That's by Alan Watts. So I did this. I call this my supermarket face my fear game. When I was stuck, so in the picture when I was 18, 19, around this similar sort of time, I developed this fear, I should really call it a fear, of being in a supermarket. And the fear was not just being in the supermarket, it was bumping into somebody who I knew and being caught off guard and having to make small talk and getting really embarrassed. And the fear was just going red myself, becoming embarrassed, and also making that person feel uncomfortable and them thinking that I'm crazy or anxious or awkward. So as our minds tend to do, given that they, do what we think is in our best interest, my mind would make me avoid supermarkets. Anyway, I became aware of this and I was like, well, I've got a choice here. I can either avoid public places, I can avoid supermarkets forever, or I can turn this into a bit of a game, turn this into a bit of a challenge. So what I did was every day after work, whether I needed shopping or not, I would put myself in a supermarket and I would purposely walk around for at least 20 minutes looking to bump into people or just making small talk with strangers, asking staff where the cheese is, or asking somebody, oh, you bought that pasta, how's that? And I was just training myself to become used to speaking to people in public and not being embarrassed. And the way that I was able to do this was by turning it into a game. I'd say, right, for the next 21 days, I think it was 30 days, I said, I'm doing this. And I tracked it. I made like a little tally chart on my wall. And I was like, right, Monday, tick, Tuesday, tick. And it became a game. And I think there's such magic in turning our limitations into game, because games are fun. Games are about creativity. Games bring a different energy to it rather than just shaming ourselves. So I do this with clients. If clients come to me and they want to improve their financial situation, we don't get all serious and look at the numbers and, come up with a financial plan. We turn it into a game. I ask, how much money would you like to create in the next 30 or 60 days? And they tell me, and we create a chart and we have fun. And I coach them and say, right, what's one way that you can make money? What's a fun way that you can make money? What opportunities exist? And we turn it into a game. They just track that chart. So anytime they make an amount of money, they fill out this chart, and this bar chart, or if it's a pie chart, will just grow and grow and grow. We make it colorful, we make it bright, we make it somewhere that they're going to notice, so that every day they're reminded of this game. And we can do this for anything. We can do this for anything. So think about this question here. In what area of your life are you feeling limited, and how can you turn it into a game? If it's money, create a money game. If it's confidence or anxiety, turn it into a game. If you've got a phobia of lifts, turn it into a game and see if you can work up to being in the lift. Maybe just the game for now is just standing next to the lift or pressing the buttons on the lift. Do what you have to do, but do it with a game-like element. Come from this place of it being a game, and it will just change your experience of that limitation. All right. So I want to thank you one more time for, I like that. I want to thank you one more time just for joining. I really appreciate just how busy we are these days. So to sit down and to watch some training, I know that I can't always do this, but you're here, and I want to thank you for that. And the way that I want to thank you is to give you a free copy of my book. So my book is called Becoming Unstuck. It's your simple step-by-step guide to take in charge of your life. I want you to email me at will@orangeboxpd.com and just tell me whether you want a digital copy, a PDF, or if you prefer an audio version, which I've recorded as well, and I will send you your preferred version of my book. It will contain, I know, just more stories, more strategies, and more inspiration just to help you to move forward. And finally, if you want some personal support from me, there's a number of ways that we can do this. I do offer one-off rapid transformational therapy sessions. That's RTT sessions. That's 90-minute sessions honing in on one limitation, one problem that you've got, whether it's confidence or stopping smoking, losing weight, whatever you want. RTT can help you to create those changes. And coaching programs. I don't offer single session coaching programs. I do offer a real mix. There's something called the 8-week intensive, which is 8 weekly coaching sessions, really good for accountability and for creating habits. I also offer longer coaching programs with less frequent support, calls every couple of weeks for 3, 6, or 12 months. So whatever your goals are, whatever your desired support is, reach out to me. You can visit my website, which is here, www.willelwood.com, and just click on the tab Work with Will and follow the instructions just to book a free initial chat. And I look forward to connecting with you if you're going to do that. So thanks again for watching. Really enjoyed this training. You can let me know your biggest win by reaching out to me. You can share this with people you know and love who also are interested in mindset and also to create a life without limits. So thanks for watching. Take good care of yourself and see you soon. Bye for now.